common question we get from people interested to use Heidi is that, have there been any clinical trials, tertiary studies, peer-reviewed studies out there that show the efficacy of Heidi or AI scribes?
So in short, not yet. There's lots of work we're starting to do with some institutions, whether it's like University of Sydney, like some work in the US and in the UK, lots of clinicians who are interested to research the topic. I think it's important to be careful about, like, sometimes doctors, having been one, get a bit confused about what things that they use are therapeutics and what things aren't. So Heidi is a tool that you're using. You know, when you use voice memos on your iPhone, you don't ask for clinical trials about safety. We view it in the same way. Heidi is a tool, you're supervising it. You decide how much you do or don't use it in your clinical practice. We're not doing management and diagnosis. This is like drafting your notes. You decide what you finalize. I'm interested, like from like just an academic point of view, it's interesting and it's important for us to prove efficiency, quality of documentation, retention of topics. How do we compare to humans, and ultimately, like, does that improve outcome or the amount of care that a clinician can give? So all these things are important.
I think there's also an interesting point to think that with some of these studies, it is heavily dependent on the scribe that they're using. Has it been implemented properly within that environment? Because a big problem that we find is that without proper onboarding and training, that the people using Heidi or any AI scribe within these peer studies, the results are going to be obviously, I guess, unimpressive, to say the least, if they're not deployed in the way that they should be.
Also, like, ungeneralizable, like it's not a general finding. Like, actually, fairly recently, there was a study published in New England Journal of Medicine, so big high authority paper. It was an implementation of one particular company's tool, exactly what you said, to a naive group that had never used it before, and they measured the time it took them to complete their notes. There was no personalization, customization. Seemed like training protocols were fairly minimal. And the findings were that they were insignificant or slightly slower with the scribes than without.
And I'm assuming they were measuring things like time saved and
And I think the hard thing is, like, if that were true, there wouldn't be hundreds of thousands of clinicians using it and signing up for Heidi, and like people wouldn't use it if they don't find it valuable. So that's the hard part. Like, I don't think we need to prove there's utility. What we should prove is, like, the exact, like, quantify, okay, what's the return on investment here for a public hospital when you're using public funds? Maybe what's impact on patient outcomes and all these critical things. So, like, that's totally valid. But yeah, there's some interesting bias, and like I've seen studies where they just focus on the large language model part, or they just focus on the transcription part, and I worry about the incentives of the people that are creating those studies and funding them, because very often it's about protecting the status quo, or there's some other incentive, a competing company who has a different technology. In short, like, we will contribute, we will do research on Heidi. We have our own data, like that's our own objective data, which we share with parties that are interested or procuring us. So we can say, you know, less than 2 in 10,000 notes on average get a 1 or a 2 rating on feedback. So it's a pretty low negative rating rate. You know, it's pretty impressive. But we're not, like, resting on our laurels. We still spend a lot of time thinking about all these different aspects of what Heidi might do for a practice.
So if you're an interested tertiary institution, please reach out.
100%. Yeah.